Today we're looking again at essential questions. Number 3, what strategies and resources do I use to figure out unknown vocabulary? Number 4, what is literary text really about? And number 5, how does interaction with text promote thinking and response? We're on the same 3 learning targets as yesterday. Learning target number 1, to cite several pieces of text evidence in the form of facts, definitions, and concrete details to support the claims made in your analysis. Remember, that means to quote proof from the written work that you're looking at. That's your facts and details. To support your claim, and remember, a claim is an opinion that can be supported with facts in your analysis. And remember, an analysis is the examination itself that you're doing of the text. You're also looking at learning target number 2, to make claims in the form of inferences, conclusions, and generalizations drawn from the text. That says claims, so you need to make multiple opinions that can be supported with evidence. You're using the hints the text gives you, we call those inferences. Decisions that you've reached by your own reasoning, we call those conclusions. And broad statements that connect to life beyond the text, which we call generalizations. You're doing that using details in the text as the basis for your claims, which again means your specific opinions. We're also looking at number 6, to analyze how the setting impacts or interacts with the characters in the plot. Remember, that means to look closely at how the setting affects the characters and the plot of the piece. As you're reading, yesterday I had said the goal was to get up to CR5. That was 3 pages of the close reader. And it started here. And I also said yesterday you were to use questions 1 and 2 to guide your margin notes and highlights. Question 1 is, as you read lines 1 through 77, begin to collect and cite evidence. The things you need to cite is you want to look for stuff that describes the story setting and make a margin note about in the form of our usual, a summary, a connection, a paraphrase of a challenging sentence, or a question if you have some confusion about that setting. Make sure your note connects to the purpose, which is to look for setting details within that question. It also says to highlight several events that depend on the setting. So if you found an event throughout any of the pages, you would highlight that event, and then your margin note would be the connection of how it connects to the setting. And then the third part of question 1 is to highlight the narrator's name and underline 3 things she reveals about herself and Tucker. So for that one, again, that doesn't serve as an extra highlight. Your highlights need to focus around characters and setting, and then your margin note would still be a summary, question, connection, or paraphrase of a challenging sentence. But make sure they focus on either the setting or the character throughout lines 1 through 77, which starts here. This is line 1, and 77 ended on the 3rd page. So your highlights and margin notes on this page should also have tied in to character and setting. On this page right here, you could take 2 margin notes of your choosing, but make sure it tied in to character and setting when you stopped and made a highlight and did a summary, connection, question, or paraphrase. You also were responsible yesterday for question 2, which is to go back and reread lines 6 through 26 in the margin and describe how the conflict or what the conflict is that Tucker faces. That would count as another of your highlights, but make sure it highlights and connects to what this question right here is asking. And your margin note should tie in to that, but also be either a summary, question, connection, or paraphrase. Then the second part of question 2 said to highlight the text that foreshadows a future event. So again, you have another option for a highlight here. Both of these come from 2 through 26, which is on the previous page here. So you have 2 options for your highlight and margin notes already that connect to the conflict and foreshadowing. Make sure you do those and margin note a summary, question, connection, or paraphrase. Today you're reading page 3, and so you're reading lines 78 through 116. This question, or you're starting at question 3, not page 3. This question connects to the reading due for today through 78 through 116. And so you're going to look for where you see suspense about a major event in the plot. You need to look for text lines that suggest that the character's meeting with Richard was important to Tucker. And then look for highlights that connect to, look for text evidence that connects to making an inference about Tucker's attitude towards Richard. So these are the 3 focused areas for our highlights and margin notes. So make sure your highlights connect to these and your margin notes explain these while summarizing, making a connection, asking a question, or paraphrasing the section. You're going to be reading page CR6 while you're looking for those 3 bulleted items, page CR7, and then you'll get into question 4, which says to go back and reread 110 or 100 through 116. And you need to answer this question here. The way you answer the question is by clicking on it. When you click on it, a box will come up that you can type in. Make sure you put it into my notebook so I can read your response as well. Once you're done with the question, after it's checked into my notebook, all you have to do is close it out. The question reads, explain the significance of Richard's statement that Tucker would make a good tugboat and one day might even grow to be a big ship. Make sure you use text evidence to support whatever answer you give. And remember, we talked about text evidence being quoted. So make sure you put quotation marks around it. That doesn't mean it has to be dialogue. That means you just put quotation marks around whatever you take. You are also responsible for question 5. As you read lines 117 through 183, continue to cite textual evidence. In the margin, take notes about how suspense is built in this section and highlight the paragraph that's most likely the story's climax. So your notes are set around the suspense or that rising action within the section. Make sure your margin notes are still a summary, connection, question, or paraphrase of a challenging section of the text that relates to suspense. And then make sure you highlight as a second margin note that whole paragraph that you think is most likely the climax. And again, summarize that climax, make a connection to it, ask a question, or make a prediction. This is the final page of reading for today, which is CR8. So you are responsible for CR5, which is where you just read question 3. So question 3, CR6, CR7, question 4 and 5, and CR8. And that's where you'll stop for today's work. So go ahead and get working on citing text evidence, making claims to support inferences, and analyzing how the setting interacts with the characters.